You know, imagine for a second the busiest intersection in one of the world's biggest cities. Okay, now imagine it just grinds to a complete halt. Not for a president, not for some big emergency, but for a cartoon character. Well, that actually happened. And the story of how we got there is frankly so much more complex and fascinating than you'd ever think. All right, let's get into it.
So, just to get a sense of the scale we're talking about, let's just start with one single franchise, Pokémon. As of 2021, its value is estimated at over $100 billion. Get this, that makes it the largest entertainment brand on the entire planet. Not the largest anime brand, the largest entertainment brand, period.
And this just shows you its cultural power. So in November 2022, after 25 long years, the main character, Ash Ketchum, finally won the world championship. And in Shibuya, Tokyo, the city literally just paused. Cars stopped, people froze in the street, all of them staring up at the big screens to watch Pikachu win. It's just incredible.
So, how, right? How on earth does a cartoon victory become so important that it can stop traffic in a city like Tokyo?
Well, this definitely wasn't some overnight success. No, this is a story that goes back centuries. It's a journey of art, of war, and some major cultural clashes that turned this local art form into a global powerhouse. So let's go back. Let's trace the story right from the very beginning.
See, the roots of anime are so much deeper than television. To really get it, you have to understand this is a visual storytelling tradition that existed hundreds of years before film was even invented.
Way back in the 1600s, Japan had these story scrolls that you'd read from right to left. I mean, that's basically the first manga, right? Then fast forward to the 1800s and you get these Western-style comic magazines showing up, and the art forms start to blend. This all leads up to 1952 when Osamu Tezuka creates his Astro Boy manga, which just a decade later, well, it makes the huge leap to America as the first ever exported anime series.
Now, to really understand this next part, you have to think about the timing. This is happening right after World War II. Japan was a defeated nation, literally rebuilding itself from the ground up. The kinds of stories people wanted, the heroes they needed, that all changed in a huge way. They needed a hero that actually reflected their new reality.
And this is where things get really different. I mean, think about it.
American comics had these perfect godlike heroes, Superman, Batman, billionaires, or aliens who would swoop down from above to solve everyone's problems. Japan created a totally different kind of hero. A hero like Astro Boy, who was relatable, who rose up from the ashes, just like the nation itself was trying to do.
But here's the wild part. The father of manga, Osamu Tezuka, he was completely obsessed with Disney. The story goes, he watched Bambi something like 80 times. He fell in love with those wide, expressive eyes of characters like Mickey Mouse, not just because they were cute, but because they were amazing at showing emotion. And that one stylistic choice, it would go on to define the entire look of anime for decades.
Okay, so Japan's got this powerful new art form. But as anime started to travel around the world, it ran into a huge problem. Turns out, not everyone saw it the same way. What happened next was a series of really fascinating cultural showdowns.
So when Astro Boy first landed in the US back in the 60s, American cartoons had these super strict rules. I mean, you couldn't even show a character dying on screen. So anime, with its more adult themes, was a real shock to the system. NBC actually rejected half of Astro Boy's episodes at first because they were too violent, and they ended up editing the rest. And that whole conflict led to one of the most legendary stories in movie history. So, after one of his early films got absolutely butchered by an American studio, the legendary director Hayao Miyazaki decided never again. When producer Harvey Weinstein wanted to make cuts to the masterpiece Princess Mononoke, Miyazaki's producer sent him a full-sized samurai sword with a simple two-word note: no cuts. And you know what? It worked.
But censorship wasn't the only way things were changed. Over in the Arab world, this hugely influential TV channel called Spacetoon took a totally different approach. Instead of just cutting stuff out, they got really creative and actually localized the content.
I mean, this was a complete cultural makeover. Shirtless guys, suddenly they'd have shirts drawn on them. Unmarried couples, they were given wedding rings. And in this bit of, well, creative magic, cigarettes and alcohol would often get turned into lollipops and juice. They even reshaped entire storylines to better fit with local values, like friendship and justice. Now, even with all these cultural hurdles, anime spread across the globe has had this massive and really overwhelmingly positive impact on the world, and especially on Japan itself.
I mean, it inspires kids everywhere with themes of friendship and never giving up. It almost single-handedly made soccer popular in Japan, all thanks to a show called Captain Tsubasa. You've got tech leaders like Elon Musk who say it was a major inspiration for them. It's been a global ambassador for Japanese culture. I mean, how many of us even knew what ramen was before Naruto? And for Japan's economy, it's an absolute industrial powerhouse. In fact, it's such a powerful cultural export that every single year, about 3 million tourists travel to Japan specifically for anime. Just to put that in perspective, that's a staggering number of people. But, and this is a big but, behind this bright, colorful, multi-billion-dollar success story, there's a much, much darker reality. It's a reality that hits the very people who bring these amazing worlds to life. So remember that number, 3 million tourists. Now look at this one, $650. That is the average monthly income for a starting animator in the anime industry. The contrast is just shocking. The working conditions are so notoriously brutal that Japan actually has a specific word for it, karoshi. It literally means death from overwork. And tragically, it's not just a concept. In 2014, one young animator took his own life after reportedly working 600 hours in a single month. This chart really puts it all into perspective. The poverty line in Japan is around 2.2 million yen a year. A starting animator, they make about 1 million yen, less than half of that. Most of them don't even reach the poverty line until they're in their 40s. So why? Why are the wages so unbelievably low? Well, the problem goes all the way back to the very beginning. To make sure he dominated the market, Osamu Tezuka, the father of anime, intentionally sold his first show, Astro Boy, for an extremely low price. And by doing that, he accidentally set a precedent, locking the entire industry into this low-cost, high-pressure model that it has never been able to escape. It's called Tezuka's curse. And this dark side isn't just limited to the creators. You know, the incredible power of this medium has also had some really complex and sometimes troubling effects on viewers. This ranges from the physical, like a 1997 Pokemon episode that actually caused seizures in hundreds of kids, to these deep psychological and social issues, like the rise of something called fictionophilia, which is a real romantic attachment to fictional characters. It just goes to show how deeply this art form can really affect us. So, at the end of the day, what is anime? Is it this beautiful, inspiring art form that captures millions of hearts and can literally stop traffic in Tokyo? Or is it a brutal, high-pressure industry that's built on the backs of its passionate, underpaid artists? Well, the truth is, it's both. And understanding that contradiction, that's really the key to seeing the whole story behind your favorite shows.